Hello, I am making this video on Thursday, March 17th, so happy St. Patrick's Day to you. We are finishing up week, I'm really not even sure what week we're finishing up. I didn't write the number down on my notes. But anyway, last week you studied exponential equations and linear equations. Linear are in 5.2 of Hawkes and exponential are in 5.4. I think I said this last week. This is typically something that students struggle a little bit more with because it's not as familiar as the topics we've already covered. So this should be a review from your previous math classes, but it is definitely something that is probably not as fresh as like percentages and probability and reading graphs and charts and things like that. You also had a COVID lab to do. I hope that you found that to be easy. You pretty much read the article, and then as you're reading the article, you go through and answer the questions. But it talks about whether or not COVID is trending in an exponential fashion or a linear. And honestly, that article was written 2 years ago, so a lot has changed with COVID. We know it's been like up and down, and it's actually been like more of a wave pattern. But that was discussing the growth of COVID in those initial stages. And so it was growing exponentially in the beginning. This week, tying along with that COVID lab, you're going to post to the Flipgrid some responses about your COVID experience. And so I have that listed on Moodle. You're going to post a Flipgrid this week. Of course, next week you will do the responses, but about how COVID has impacted your life. So we're bouncing off that lab last week for our discussion this week. You have a linear and exponential practice worksheet. I don't think I've ever done this before, but it's a worksheet that I've attached the answer key. It's something that I want you to practice. It's really good practice. It's not something that I'm going to collect and grade. It's not big enough to weight it as a lab grade. You have another lab this week. It's linear and exponential, and I have a video that walks you through that lab. I cannot fathom trying to do that lab without watching my video. It is one of the more difficult labs, I think, especially if you're not familiar with these topics and have a really good handle on them from what we did last week with Hawkes. You also have a Chapter 5 review in Hawkes Learning. Next week, you will have to take your final proctored quiz. Now, the final exam is also proctored, but in terms of quizzes, this is the last proctored quiz. You only have two, Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. Those are proctored. Chapter 7 and 8 is unproctored. We've already finished that one. And the last chapter, I think it's Chapter 9, it won't be proctored either. So next week, you will have to take your quiz for Chapter 5 in a proctored setting. You can sign up for ProctorU. You can sign up for one of the Academic Success Centers on main campus or in Laurinburg. Or you can contact me if you would rather take it in person and see if your schedule and my schedule coordinate. I will say I'm only on main campus this semester, but I'm there 5 days a week in the morning. And so if that works for you, you can reach out to me and we can see if we can set up a time. But it does have to be proctored. So go ahead and prepare for that. I'll probably open it up sometime this week. I don't have it open right now as I'm making this video, but I probably will open it up this week. I think that is about it. I feel like I usually have a lot more to say. We're sort of on the home stretch. We're more than halfway through with our course. After Chapter 5, we only have one more chapter, and it's the finance unit. So we'll talk about interest. We'll talk about compound interest, simple interest, borrowing money, lending money, credit cards, debit cards, all things financial. So for those of you that work in the bank, this should be a super easy way to wrap up. If you have any questions this week, let me know. I think that's it. So have a great week. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you next week.